Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Real Recognition in the Rental Housing Industry, the Power to Motivate Your Employees. My name is James Campbell, and I'm the Senior Manager of Industry Relations with NAA. I want to welcome all of our members in attendance and thank you for joining us for this important topic. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping points. First, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted to our website and YouTube channel next week. You may then share this presentation with those colleagues and friends who are unable to attend at present. Next, we have allotted time at the end of today's presentation for live questions and answers. You may type your questions into the Q&A or chat boxes on your screen, and we will share them with our presenter. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our presenter, Roy Saunderson. Roy will tell you a little bit about himself later, but he is the Chief Learning Officer and a recognition strategist with Engage to Excel Group. Roy has been in the employee recognition field for over 25 years. He is a leading authority on this topic, a published author, a regular blog poster, and a frequent keynote speaker, often quoted in the media. As Roy himself would say, he loves helping people learn how to give real recognition the right way wherever they work. Roy?
Well, thank you very much, Jim, and it's good to be with everyone. We're looking forward to receiving your questions along the way, besides my giving this presentation to hopefully help you retain and motivate your employees through this powerful method of real recognition, which I'll be explaining to you. Some of you may pick up during the course of the webinar, there's a little accent in my voice, and yes, I was originally from England, just south of London, trained in the bank. I was a speech language pathologist for many years, and it was in fact my experience in speech language pathology where I really gained the greatest insights that led me into the field of employee recognition. And I founded the Recognition Management Institute. It was acquired by Rideau and now by Engage to Excel. And when I was a speech language pathologist, what I found was that when I saw clinicians who I was watching to learn the tips and methods and treatment methods, I saw that they were saying good job to little kids doing articulation therapy, for example. And I thought to myself, like a 3-year-old, I just said a sound. They showed a picture, perhaps the therapist showed a picture or an object, and the child tried to say the sound and the word. And the therapist said, good job. But to a 3-year-old, what is a job? And what was it that was good? They didn't really know. How much better it would have been if they had said, you did that p sound so clearly I could hear it. Your lips came together and I heard the p sound so clearly. Well done. That's being specific. And I learned that this being specific was really important to give people the right kind of feedback. And so I delved into this recognition field and I found out that the lack of recognition really impacts people. Dr. Jean-Pierre Brun, who I've met from the University of Laval, found that people who had a lack of recognition were almost twice as likely to be absent from work and to feel stress. They found that those who lacked recognition in the workplace were 30% more likely to develop heart disease. Wow, this is scary when you really think about a lack of recognition causing health problems. Let me give you an example of how this really manifests itself. For example, when a group of people were told to think about things that make you think frustrating thoughts, whether that's job-related, home, driving in traffic, any other health issues, but you're thinking frustration thoughts. If you look on the left-hand side, they measured the heart rate, the beats per minute. And you can see on the left side there that frustration created a very arrhythmic, erratic level of heart monitoring. Now, the rate was the same for when people thought to appreciation thoughts, but it was more erratic, more arrhythmic. Then they shifted and they told people to just think thoughts of appreciation and gratitude and recognition. And while the beats per minute are the same, look at how rhythmic and consistent the rhythm is of the heartbeats. This is how it affects the heart. Recognition really has a physical manifestation on who we are and what we may become by just how we feel about recognition. Now, I've talked about real recognition. I want to explain where that term came from. When I first started in the field of recognition, I would often be brought into an organization because of an employee engagement survey, and where the recognitions questions or statements on the survey produced low results. And I came in, I found out, they're doing recognition programs, they have gala events where they honor the best of the best. But somehow on the surveys, employees were saying, I don't feel valued and appreciated. I don't feel recognized sufficiently for the contributions and work that I do. And so I turned around and I said, well, it looks like you're giving recognition, but is it real recognition? Well, that's when somebody, first time I said that, they said, so Roy, what is real recognition? And of course it was like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to define this. So then I had to go away and come up with a definition for what real recognition. And for me, I've defined real recognition as any thought, word, or deed towards making someone feel appreciated for who they are and recognized for what they do. Now, you'll see there are two parts to this definition. The first part is helping people feel appreciated for who they are, independent of any work performance. Do we appreciate them for their background, for their education, family, personal interests, hobbies, you name it, everything that makes the person who they are? Do we appreciate that? I once did a presentation and we had everybody in this small company write up on pieces of paper talents, hobbies, interests that they had that they didn't think many people would know about in the company that might or could be used to benefit the company. And the CEO of that company said they had learned more about their employees from that simple exercise than anything else they had done to date, because they hadn't fully appreciated the individuals they had working for them. The second part of the definition is recognizing people for what they do. Now, notice I said recognize people for what they do, not what they've done. Employees tell me that too often they're having to wait till a project is completed. All the tasks are in. It could be weeks or sometimes months down the road before they get acknowledged, because that's when it's done. That's when the project, the task, the work is done. People tell me that they want to hear recognition along the way. They want to be recognized for the doing. So make sure you stop and that you appreciate and recognize people along the way for everything that they are doing. Now, this is my definition. There's also more maybe academic or more defined ways of looking at recognition. But recognition is mostly an intangible expression of acknowledgement and valuing of an individual or team for their positive behaviors, their personal effort, or contributions they have made. In a sense, this summarizes recognition. And you may say, well, why do we have to even define what recognition is? Well, let me tell you, for the many organizations that I have consulted with, presented to, solved problems for, they often mix up the terms recognition with rewards. And often you'll get people saying recognition, but the employee's thinking rewards. Or someone says rewards, but really they mean and are thinking about recognition. So I want to make sure we're clear today on what recognition is. Now, let me tell you what rewards are. Rewards are tangible, monetary, or experiential items given to a person or team in return for reaching preset goals, reaching a significant achievement, or special service performed. Rewards are very different from recognition. Recognition is more you're recognizing behaviors, positive behaviors that are occurring. Rewards are more for acknowledging and rewarding results. When you give recognition, you don't have to give a reward. But when you give a reward, you should always accompany it with recognition, so it's not in isolation, that the people know why they got rewarded. Too often rewards are like clickbait. They're kind of just clicked on and delivered, and the employees sometimes don't even know why they got the reward. So we have to be very clear with the recognition to accompany it to make the rewards even meaningful. So these are some definitions to help us work through. And I have another definition around recognition that I'm kind of evolving into. And that's this, that real recognition is the transfer of positive feelings or emotions from one person to another person for the amazing work that they do. You know, we get excited, we're in awe, we're amazed by some of the things that our employees do. That was an emotional reaction to something we saw, or maybe we heard about from someone else. So our job with recognition is to kind of bottle up those feelings and emotions that we felt in observing or hearing about someone's positive deeds. And we're going to try and give those kind of emotions back to the individual in expressing acknowledgement, praise, thanks for what someone is doing. So I like to put that kind of emotional experience in there because recognition is a felt phenomenon. When I look back at all those engagement surveys that I've looked at over the years, they tend to always use the feel word. You know, do you feel recognized and appreciated for the contributions you make in your work? They ask the feel questions, but we are reluctant to many times to kind of give feelings back to the individual, the recipient of recognition that we should be. Let's kind of look at this broad picture by looking at this recognition and reward continuum. I put it this way because I think it helps, you know, without necessarily defining every aspect along the way, it puts everything in its order. You have a more personal, intangible side on the one side with appreciation, praise, and recognition. And then on the far right, you have the more tangible, impersonal. I say this because we don't usually put a lot of emotion or feelings into the reward side of things. So you have incentives, rewards, and compensation. And it's Rosabeth Moss-Cantor from Harvard Business School who said, compensation is a right. Recognition is a gift. I want you to just think about those expressions from this professor to kind of keep that in mind. So incentive, rewards, compensation, that's kind of the reward side. It's tangible and impersonal. And I haven't mentioned awards yet. Awards straddles the middle. They tend to be a cross between recognition and rewards. It might be the best of the best. It might be career milestone awards. It might be sales achievements and things like this. So, you know, you are the best of the best, or you're nominated and you earn an award. And in some organizations, they can afford more prestigious events and trophies, monetary, whatever, rewards. And in other organizations, you may still have an event, but they may just receive a plaque or even a certificate, but they'll have perhaps a luncheon or a dinner. That's why it straddles the two. because there is both acknowledgement and there is also usually some form of reward, whether it be event-oriented or tangible. So here's this continuum. Keep it in mind as it helps you hopefully delineate and define for yourself the different terms, the things that you might want to do in your organizations, the things you are doing, but maybe need to define better and clearer for everyone involved. All right. One of the tasks I told Jim that I want to do today is provide you with some practical skills for giving more meaningful and effective recognition by focusing in on some recognition skills. Now, you heard me right from the beginning talk about good job, well done, great. Too often we use only these expressions. That's all we use. We only say good job. And while I talked about young kids with articulation therapy, the same confusion will occur for adults. They know something's good, but what exactly were they recognizing me for when they said job? And wasn't good job what I signed up to do anyways when I started with the organization? And that's the standard expectations, to do a good job. And I'm planning on doing things well, and it should be great. So it's nothing new and exciting when you hear these expressions. And I need to tell you that even employees will go, thank you, and then they're questioning, what was that all about? They don't know. So I'm going to suggest that if you can muster up the courage to ban these words from your vocabulary, or if you really have a hard time holding on to them, that you might say them plus some of the things that I'm going to suggest to you. Being specific can be its own reward, said author and marketer Seth Godin. And I really found that this being specific is absolutely essential for giving memorable, meaningful, motivational recognition. Let me tell you about the two-part specificity rule that I created. I know I used to be a speech language pathologist, so if you can say two-part specificity rule, you probably don't need any help with speech therapy. But the two-part specificity rule tells you how you can give more meaningful recognition. The first part is when you are giving recognition, move away from the good jobs and get real specific about the behavior or action that you saw that kind of you noticed, you observed it, it stood out. It was amazing. It was the behaviors that were positive that really impacted you. And so you describe that. You say the words that are just a little bit longer than what you might say if you said good job. And then you tell the individual with the next phrase or sentence the impact that their action made on you, on a resident, on the organization, the building, whoever. But tell them the impact. Too many times people don't even know the difference that they're making or the impact that they've had on you or someone else. Let's look at this statement that I've got up here on the screen, and let's kind of see how this works. The first part here, Julio, I want to thank you for getting the pot lights fixed in the vacant unit so early this morning. And then the impact. I was able to rent the unit before noon because you did this so quickly. This really hits home. And really, when I time this, because one of the biggest reasons or excuses, I would say, that people give for saying they don't give recognition is, oh, it takes too much time. Well, here's the irony. If I said the words thank you, it takes no longer than 1.2 seconds. If we use this statement that I've got up on the screen here, it's 14 seconds. Then that shows you that it doesn't take much time. But it does take you time to observe, to see, to hear about, to find out. That's where the time comes in. And we'll talk about that a little later on. But I want to advocate you using this two-part specificity rule of action plus impact. You don't have to really work out the exact sentence or phrase before you go and talk to someone. Just think, am I acknowledging this person for the positive actions or behaviors that they just did? And then am I telling them the impact they just made on other people? That's how well you can give better recognition, by using the action and impact statement. Now, I also want to tell you it's important to develop a positive vocabulary. You may be surprised to know that 50% of our working vocabulary is negative. Oh yeah, I mean, I look at whether it be the meteorologist online or whether it's looking at the app on my phone, they always tell me how there is a 10% chance of rain, 20% chance of rain, 30% chance of rain. They don't say that there's a 90, 80, or 70% chance of sunshine. We tend to focus on the negative. I remember when I was flying a lot more than I am now today, and you might hear the pilot come on over the intercom there and say something like, "We're coming in for our final descent." And I'm thinking, no, I don't want a final descent. I want plenty more, please. So we have this focus on negative vocabulary that's shameful, and we need to get more positive vocabulary. In reality, the research has shown that only 30% of our working vocabulary is positive. That's why we need to build up our own vocabularies, because we fixate and focus on the negative. And here's an interesting point. That leaves another 20% of the working vocabulary that we use is neutral. Let me show you how this pans out with some word choices. So first of all, look at this positive list of words. These are the kinds of words you need to develop as part of your vocabulary. Use a thesaurus if you need to, if you're working and writing something or going into an online program. Make these words a part of your vocabulary in your everyday conversations with people, even at home with your family, which is the great blessing of getting recognition right, is that it's transferable no matter where you are, whether it's at home or in your community. So at work, home, or play, make positive vocabulary more ingrained in how you communicate recognition, praise, and acknowledgement to people. Now, there is connotative meaning and denotative meaning. So we look up in the dictionary, we see what the denotation meaning is. Here are some words, 3 words. Courageous is connotative meaning, is positive. And conceited, the connotative meaning, is negative. And the word confident, which we might have thought of as a positive word, is actually fairly neutral. It's kind of blasé, doesn't really go too far. So now we look at these other words, and we can see this spectrum of where the positive vocabulary is, where the negative vocabulary is, and even the neutral. So we want to stay clear of neutral, stay clear of the negative. Did you just notice something in the neutral list? I did. The word good is neutral. And yet too many times we've been applying a very unspecific word, job, together with good, and it didn't really mean much to someone. And so that's what we're doing to people when we say good job. It's neutral and it's unspecific. Learn to be more positive. Learn to be more mindful of your vocabulary. And if you put this together with the 2-part specificity rule, you'll find yourself in good shape to give better recognition the way that people want to receive it. All right, we need more interactions with people if we're going to give better recognition and give it more frequently. When we look into the rearview mirror, we're seeing things that have happened before, behind us. And in the world of measurements and statistics, these are called lagging indicators. I referred earlier to engagement surveys, and you and I know that they get done at a point in time, and we're reviewing, in essence, the last 6 months, a year, or whatever, of people's perceptions of the organization. And so those numbers are way behind. Very easy to measure, but hard to make a difference now. And those of you who do engagement surveys know it's hard to know, okay, what are we going to do? What's the plan now for improving employee engagement after the survey's been done? It's the same with online recognition programs. We can produce data from those programs that are wonderful to see how many e-cards were sent, how many comments were made, how many likes were given, how many nominations were sent, how many awards or rewards were given. Easy to measure, but after the fact, you can't do anything about it because it's been long gone. What we need are leading indicators. Leading indicators are much harder to measure, but they're easier to influence. And let me show you why we need more interactions to be a leading indicator for recognition. For example, what must happen before you actually recognize someone? Well, as you and I know, a person or a team does a positive action or behavior that merits being recognized. Someone's doing some great things in the organization. And then that positive action or behavior has to be observed by you or reported to you by someone else. You need to know about the positive things and great things going on. That is a leading indicator that the more interactions you have with employees, the more opportunities you will have to hear about, learn about, observe positive actions or behaviors. If you have one-on-ones with your staff and you ask them what they're working on, what gets them excited right now with their work, what things are challenging for them, you can hear some of the things that are going on. But you've got to have that interaction. You've got to build in more opportunities for connecting, especially when some of our staff are working remotely, for example, or we don't get to see them face to face as we usually did if we were in the office. So make this a leading indicator of having more interactions with your staff, no matter how short it is, whether it's in person, whether it's on the phone, video conferencing, or however methods you have during your meetings. Like, learn about what people are doing so that you have more evidence, more proof, more examples of what needs to be recognized in the organization. All right, now we need to talk about recognizing everyone everywhere. For many years, recognition was seen as a top-down phenomenon. Recognition was only received by from a supervisor or manager or senior leader. Today, I want to make sure that you know and that we're encouraging the fact that recognition is multi-directional. We need to lead with recognition going in all directions. I remember when I was a director of a department at a hospital, and I really had a good relationship with my senior director or vice president of administration, but she wasn't really warm and fuzzy. She wasn't one to give praises or acknowledgement that often. But I noticed that she really helped me out with one particular task on raising the profile of a particular project that I was trying to get approved by the senior leadership team. And she really advocated for me, and I really appreciated it. So I wrote her a thank you card. And even at that time, as a speech language pathologist, I knew about being specific. I knew the importance of it. And so I wrote out this thank you card. And I want you to know that thank you card stayed on her desk for several weeks. The odd time that I would pop in, there it was on her desk. There was nothing else. There was the blotter, the traditional leather blotter. There was picture frames. There was the thank you card. Now, I'm not saying she was the kind of person that might have received a lot of thank you cards, but it stuck and it stayed there. I want you to think about thank you cards that you have received. There are some keepers, aren't there? There's some that you read and you discard. And there are others that you hold on to. You might even keep them in a top drawer. And then every now and again, every blue moon, you might pull one out and reread it. Why do we do that? we reread them because we want to feel the same feelings we had when we read it the first time. There is the relationship strength between the person who sent you the card and the message that they wrote. And you're reliving the event, maybe the task, the accomplishment, achievement that you managed to attain. And then their words and expressions just kind of resonate with you. You keep that card. And it's the same with any recognition that you give. Any recognition given well is going to be a keeper in the mind, keeper in the heart, and it affects us. So keep in mind to encourage everyone when you have your team huddles, when you have your staff meetings, encourage everyone to recognize one another. If they receive and are the beneficiary of help, assistance in any shape or form, remind people to thank one another, to recognize one, to praise them for the great things that are going on in the organization. It is in creating that kind of a culture, a way of doing things, that you will retain employees. There are employees who could get paid more to go somewhere else, but will stay with your organization simply because they feel valued and appreciated and recognized. They don't have a chance going to another organization that might not acknowledge them, observe and see them, to actually notice them. They will stay. And if we are losing people, make recognition a key focus for your organization to get this a part of the way things should be done in your organization. All right. What can we do to really help our people? I think it's important that as you look at the people you work with, we need to listen up and pay attention. And then we need to take some action. I work with most of my employees that I work with are remote. There are some employees who I am the beneficiary of, or who serve our clients and I periodically may have to interact with. But I don't see them that often. I do not communicate with them. I don't have them in meetings. But I heard from one of my colleagues that this one particular information technology person that we work with was getting inundated with project requests. This was right at the beginning of COVID. I knew because she had to have one of her children at home now instead of at the daycare. That was challenging. I knew that she was sometimes working on weekends or staying at work late to get these projects done. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm hearing this. Am I really paying attention to this? Is anyone really doing anything about this? So I got on the computer and I typed up an email and I said, and I'll call her Mary. I said, Mary, I just heard about all the crazy requests you're getting, some of the negative reactions you're getting because you can't get to everything right away. And yet I'm hearing you're staying late, working weekends, and dealing with your little one on top of all this. I just want you to know I ache for you. I feel for you. I just want you to know that here I am in the West and you're in the East, and I'm giving you a big wave, sending a hug because I don't know what else I can do. And signed it and sent it off. I got an immediate response back. And Mary said, you just made my day. So as we hear things, don't ignore them. They are flags. They could be irritations. They could be concerns for whether they're going to stay with the organization. Listen up, pay attention, and take some action. Send out emails of gratitude and concern. In fact, start your day off by sending out an email of gratitude to someone who you didn't have a chance to express or communicate that to the day before. Send that out even before you open up your inbox to be able to give somebody a boost, a morale booster. And it feels good for you as a giver and sender, as it is for a recipient. Reach out with a call or text message. We've become more isolationists with working from home if we're working remotely. So make sure you take the time to reach out and connect with people. That's what we need. And remember, you need to be reaching out anyways, because you need to increase your interactions to find out the amazing things that are happening that merit being recognized. All right. And then speaking of reaching out remotely, watch out for any nonverbal signals that you have when you have your video conference calls. Be noticing things in the background. You've probably seen it too during this pandemic time, where you've seen a little tyke open a door to mommy or daddy's office, and the individual's having to lovingly try to say to go back out. Acknowledge that. Don't say, hey, it's all right. I've been on many calls, seen this many times. You're okay. In fact, if you do need to step out for a minute, do so. So watch for facial reactions, watch for tone of voice a little bit more along with the facial expressions. We can hear things on the phone. In fact, people can pick up that people are smiling even on the phone. But now look at the facial features when you're on a video conference call. Make sure you have whatever kudos and shout outs in your online meetings. Make sure you put them at the beginning, because I've seen it where people put it as the last thought, and guess what? Meeting runs over time, and the opportunity to recognize people is wiped right off. That's what we think of people. We wipe them off. No, put it first, and suggest, instead of just saying, okay, time for kudos and shout outs, and then hear crickets, nothing. Why not say, who of you has got maybe something spectacular that you saw this week from anybody in the group? So you're talking about what they've seen. Talk about who has benefited from any of your colleagues this week in being helped with a particular problem that came up with a great solution. Kind of prime it with questions rather than just have this agenda item where it says kudos and shout outs and nobody says anything. And then also make sure that you send people personalized items or gifts to boost their morale, especially when they're working remotely and they're not connected. We don't have the water cooler moments anymore. We need this chance to maybe receive something in the mail. Know that it takes a while now to get things in the mail or courier, but send something that's personal, it's meaningful. Find out what their interests are and use those kind of opportunities. And then have fun with he who must not be named video conferencing app. Yeah, we may have become Zoom zombies because of this new platform, but it's also important to have some fun. Sometimes we go straight into task mode. How about turn off the cameras and ask a question and say, who has a birthday this week or in this month, and have everybody put on their cameras if they have a birthday, or who likes, whatever baseball team or whatever, and just have a little bit of fun, have a little opportunity to socialize through these video conference means, Zoom or other video conference app, and get to know one another. The social part is what's being missed and we're losing out. So bring those kind of techniques in to your reaching out remotely. And then it's important to celebrate each other. We're not having maybe the career milestone or service awards events like we used to. We're not acknowledging any major successes. So we do need to build in the need for celebrating each other. So we need to recognize everyone everywhere and celebrate them. And here are some thoughts. Think about the 5 senses and think about if we were to have an awards event or a celebration event, we typically have a lot of these senses being utilized to make the event a great one. So what about taste? Find out what people like to eat. Find out maybe if someone's having an anniversary of their working with the organization, send them a favorite cake. Maybe even you get these cake in a mug mixes and you send them a nice little mug for them to bake it in. What about hearing? You could have music playing on your video conference celebration. You might send out noisemakers to the staff that they will have on hand for any event like this. You could have things that people smell, flowers, for example, or even just, let's say, all take a whiff of our cake in a mug if we all did that. Whatever treat we might have, just to smell it. And touch, send someone, something that's tangible. I've got a little stress ball here, and that's fun to kind of touch and play with. Other sensory things that you might give to someone. And then finally, there's things that you see. I've kept my background plain. You and I know that you can do all kinds of Zoom backgrounds. You can actually have a banner from your organization. You might have a celebrate so-and-so's name and have it behind your background, or send it to the individual. There's all kinds of ways you can build in these senses into how you celebrate and recognize those who perhaps need this experience. Of course, I need to point out that everything takes extra time when you're planning these kind of experiential celebrations. It takes extra time for courier things, to find things, to mail things, and to make sure maybe you've got someone who's acting as your assistant, whether that be a family member of the individual or a friend nearby, who can help you plan in all these moments. But it will be worth it if you want to keep that individual motivated and encouraged and engaged. Which brings making recognition amazing takes some time, but not the time to give it. It's the time to prepare it. What I'm talking about here is conducting a kind of a recognition preference interview. You can either do it formally, or you pick up on things by being around people or on those many interactions that you're now going to be having with your staff. So listen for the things that indicate their preferences, whether that be their preferred name versus their given name. It might be observing, if they have an office, things on display. If it's in their maintenance vehicle, you see pictures of family members, friends, significant others. Observe these things, find out about who those individuals are. Then you start to build a bit of a persona of each individual. They are meaningful to your employee. Capture that information. Record a little page for each of your employees, where you're recording down their preferences so that you know whether they like public recognition or private recognition, and then respect those things. It's making sure your recognition is a keeper. That's where, when I say about writing a thank you card, we might do the automated e-cards that are very popular, but every now and again, send someone a handwritten, well-written, two-part specificity rule, specific thank you card to the individual's home, so that they and their family can see how much you care about them and appreciate them. And share all these ideas that you've learned today and through what you learned from other employees with those who need to know. Find out how you can teach others to give better recognition. I hope you're gaining some ideas today that will help you do better. But I want to make sure you know you can learn more about how to give recognition. If we don't get to answer your question today, that Jim's going to be asking me in a minute, certainly feel free to send me an email at roysaunderson@redo.com. You can follow me on a Twitter handle there. And for more insights on recognition, I encourage you to visit my blog at authenticrecognition.com. In fact, if you go visit the site, you'll see a pop-up that shows that you can receive a free copy of an ebook version of my latest book, Practicing Recognition. What will happen is it'll be subscribing you to my blog to receive the weekly updates of the latest blog posts. Feel free, if that helps you, to maintain being on that subscriber list. But also, I have no problem with you unsubscribing if it's just not a part of your needs after you've read a few of the posts after a while. You still get to keep the ebook. But this is just to help you get more proficient at giving real recognition the right way. And so I'm going to turn the time now over to Jim to ask any questions.
Well, thank you, Roy, very much for these exceptionally helpful insights on recognition. Are there any questions for Roy? Please type your questions into either the Q&A or the chat boxes on your screen. We'll read them aloud and Roy will answer them aloud. So first comes from Lindsay Williams. She wanted to know, how do we sign up for that blog again, Roy?
Sure. Just have to visit authenticrecognition.com, and there'll be a page for you to sign up on there. Or if you wait for the pop-up, click on the book, and it will also give you that way to both immediately receive the book, and you will be signed up for the blog.
We have a question from an anonymous attendee. Roy, how do you change the culture to make it more about recognition?
That's a good question. When I first started in the field of training and educating people to give recognition, I used to have a presentation that I called Making a Real Recognition Culture. I did that for a few years, and then when you study something or specialize in a particular topic, you go, wait a minute. All these consultants are out there saying, you need a culture of engagement, a culture of engagement, a culture of communication, a culture of recognition. They're worth hundreds of cultures that consultants would want an organization to have. And I realized that in reality, an organization only needs one culture. It's their culture. It's your organization's beliefs and values, the vision, the mission, the purpose, why we exist, why we're doing what we're doing. That's what you need, one culture. Now the question is it a healthy culture? Is it a vibrant culture? Does everyone know the values? I've been in organizations, go down the hallways, and I'll do this. People hate it, but I go down the hallways and I say, can you tell me your organization's values? And you either get the, duh, I think one of them is, I'm not sure if this is another one, or you get the, yes, we stand for integrity. We are, we're going to be a serving organization, whatever the values are. So to this questioner, I would say, strengthen your own culture, revitalize it, change it if we have to, because a good culture will drive any practice, whether it's recognition, engagement, good communication. That's what we need to have. We need to have an amazing culture driving recognition. Then recognition can reinforce the culture. You can recognize people for living the values. And so it takes leadership. It takes people setting expectations for giving recognition, but make sure the culture is a good one to make recognition happen.
Roy, you've got a quick question from Lisa. What was the name of the book again?
Oh, Practicing Recognition. And if you go to authenticrecognition.com, you'll see, as I said, after a while, a little pop-up window comes, and you'll see the book advertised there.
Well, Kayla's got an excellent question for you. She says, do you have any tips for knowing how individuals prefer to be recognized? Some like to be recognized publicly, some privately, some a mix of both. Some value words of praise over material gifts, and some vice versa. How do you figure out the best recognition method for the individual?
No problem. This is where I talk about the recognition preference interview that you need to have with all of your staff. You only need to have it really once. That's the wonderful thing. 10, 15 minutes, write up a list of questions. You could use the same question list that, for anybody. Also, if you go to the blog, at authenticrecognition.com, there's a search bar, and you can write in recognition preferences, and that should bring up some posts that I've written. But yeah, sit down, and it sounds corny, but it's just ask. And you're going to find little variations of a theme too. So speaking around public recognition, you don't want to discount all public recognition if you ask the question broadly that says, do you like to be recognized publicly? No. All right, that means they only want private. No, that's not quite what I mean. I don't mind, with my boss and you, or my supervisor and you, or with my colleagues and you, or in a small group. I just don't like the big event. I don't want to go to that kind of a public recognition. So really spell out, do you like public recognition as a company event? Do you like public recognition with just you and a close colleagues? So really drill down a little more. And with the private recognition, that kind of gets to, sorry, I may have gotten to private recognition is more like that. It's like with the private, just me one-on-one. Oh no, I don't mind my buddies being there, So you find out a little bit more information by drilling down each time. It's picking up on those observation cues as well, whether people like sports, don't like sports, find out their favorite drink. Remember one example of a bank where the manager over time had picked up what Jim's favorite soda was, what Roy's was, what Mary's was, what Jane's was. And then one hot, crazy summer day, when the customers were lining up, the air conditioning had broken down. The manager went out and got everybody's favorite pop. And she went down and she just put it down next to them. Now, at first, the customer service reps just thought, oh, she bought us a drink. And then they looked, wait a minute, this is my favorite drink. Yeah, I got my favorite drink too. The volumes that communicated beyond just a drink is priceless. So just by asking questions, either through an interview or through some, observations, note-taking when you get back to the office, keep a record of what people like. And the simple suggestion is just to ask. If you can do it in an interview, it helps. Otherwise, pick up and be a detective. It's great. It's great fun.
Pardon my coughing, Roy.
No problem.
I've got a very, very timely question from Mabel. She says, we are experiencing the effects of the Great Resignation in our nonprofit organization. What are some effective and practical icebreakers or activities to encourage the team to praise and appreciate one another?
Wow, this is an unexpected question. I was expecting a little, more direct, but let me tell you something that's coming to mind, and that's probably because I've been at this too long, that ideas do come to mind. I don't know if you've ever done it with a family or if you've ever done it at work, but you get a piece of paper, just an ordinary 8.5 by 11, and you write, you fold over the top piece. Let me get my bearings on how you do this now, because the folding. All right, you put the person's name at the bottom of the sheet so everyone can see it. So I want to recognize Mary, Jane, Susan, and so just one name of each, but it's good. So you do a sheet for everybody. Everybody writes their name. And then you pass it around as somebody gives a praiseworthy comment at the top, and they fold that over so you can't see it. But the person's name's at the bottom. So now you pass it to the left or right, whichever way you want to go. So everybody can see the person's name they're recognizing at the bottom, but you write your comment next, and then you fold it over so nobody can see the previous person's comment. And then by the time it's done, you open up that sheet of paper, the individual receives their name paper, and they get to see all these comments that were easy to do because they weren't spoken. They were feeling like they are anonymous. People don't know unless you recognize people's handwriting. And you get to receive that. You get to take that home with you. That's a real morale booster and hopefully a good recognition exercise.
Well, Judy apparently is giving a shout out to couple of bosses she's got. She says TM goes that extra mile for all employees. Cards, flowers, edible fruit. Our COO personally knows us and our personalities. She is wonderful.
Oh, wonderful.
Great to have a boss like that. Erin
Yeah.
Lynn has a question or a comment. She says, our company gives a favorite things form out at new hire orientation to learn about each new team member's favorite drink, food, pizza topping, candy, donuts, sports team, etc. We save it on a network drive so anyone can log in and find specific ways to appreciate their teams.
Wow, that's excellent. In fact, onboarding is a great way to orient people to whatever recognition practices or programs you have. And I might suggest make sure they give the individual a thank you note and maybe a branded pen, and tell them to write the card out using the two-part specificity rule and acknowledge someone who's, has made a difference to their week or two, whatever time the orientation occurred, made a difference to them in the time that they've just been with the company.
Well, Lisa had a question for you. How do you keep employees engaged or counting the days to retirement?
Oh, wow. That is a very interesting question. I won't pretend I'm going to have the best answer. The irony of this question is I'm looking to retire at the end of next year. So I can relate and empathize with this. I think the thing is maybe transferring, I'm thinking about transferring the knowledge and skills of this individual, that succession of knowledge and expertise to other people. I think it would be quite meaningful if they could mentor one or two employees and give that knowledge and things that they've learned and pass it on. I think it's putting that individual, I talk about the prestige and pedestal effect, where we need to put this individual on the pedestal. We need to give them opportunities to shine for all that they've done along the way before they actually retire. That's when we typically say the nice words at the end. We need to kind of be doing this along the way as well and giving them opportunities to shine. Those are just some immediate thoughts, but it's an interesting and a different question than I've had before. So thank you for asking it.
Well, perhaps maybe I'll conclude by asking you a question of my own, Roy.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are always close to my heart are like that IT professional, Mary, that you described, the folks who are, toiling away in the shadows, but they're the glue that sort of holds the whole organization together. Maybe they get taken for granted. Maybe they don't get the recognition they deserve. Are there things that employees like that can do to kind of present themselves more effectively for recognition, in your opinion?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes we are in situations where we don't get to shine. We might have a manager that doesn't foster that. And so I think it's important to kind of keep a bit of a log of your achievements and give the supervisor or manager you're reporting to those insights, updates, kind of like the CNN scroll bar that you see at the bottom of the TV screen. You're just giving a real short and sweet, just thought you should know. Here's something I'm working on right now. Didn't know if you were aware that, so you've got the log, you've always got your stuff. That's easy. Then you kind of work in whether it's a elevator conversation, whether it's an email, a text, or on a virtual meeting where you might bring up something, or if you are lucky to have a one-on-one with your manager. Those are some ideas that come to mind. But I think the key is, yeah, you do have to blow your own horn in some situations, and that's all right.
Well, perhaps one last question. Person asked, can you over-recognize? Meaning, could you be setting someone up for feeling bad if they are not recognized for tasks they have completed, say an expected task, for example?
Well, I like to say that you cannot over-recognize if you do it the right way. So, for example, if you use the two-part specificity rule, you're going to be acknowledging a specific behavior. The behavior happened. You can't not acknowledge it unless you're blind to it or you don't hear about it. So acknowledging someone specifically and then telling them the impact that it had is genuine. It's, in fact, people have told me when we do our practicing of the two-part specificity rule, people say that when you use the impact statement, it kind of went, the employees say, wow, I never thought that I was making a difference, or I didn't know that's what was happening after I did this task. I was just doing my job. But it really stands out. To give that kind of recognition, it is not over-recognized, because you either see it, hear about it when you do. It's not like every day you're going to hear something significant about that an employee is doing behaviorally, but when you do, you acknowledge it. That's great. So the fact that those interactions, those opportunities are not as frequent as we think they're going to be, you're never going to over-recognize when you give it the right way. If you're just saying, well done, good job, every time somebody does something, that's trite, it's insincere, it's inauthentic, it's meaningless. That's when it's over-recognized in the technical term, even though in my definition, it wasn't recognition at all.
Well, I think these have been great questions, and Roy, great answers. We appreciate it. We thank you very much for this really outstanding and helpful webinar. Next slide, please. So for additional resources like these, NAA maintains an online portal for its many offerings and operations solutions for the rental housing industry. The URL is featured below. And I especially wish to highlight the NAA Anonymous Mental Health Survey. We're partnering with third-party provider Swift Bunny to conduct a first-of-its-kind national survey for the rental housing industry on employee mental and emotional health. It launched last week, and this survey is fully anonymous but promises to yield keen insights and a new benchmark for us all to evaluate the status and efforts of our companies going forward. If you'd like to have your own company participate, please click on that button to learn more. Next slide, please. And finally, if you've enjoyed this webinar and would like to view more like it, you can always visit our YouTube channel for those many webinars that are now viewable on demand. So again, I wish to thank everyone for participating. Thank you, Roy. Thank you to our audience. We welcome your participation, and we look forward to more successful webinars like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to join National Apartment Association, and great questions today.
All right, enjoy.
Bye-bye now.